Being an entrepreneur is not easy. In fact, it requires a ton of sacrifice. But at the end of the day, if you're willing to put into the work, it can have some of the greatest benefits that you ever experience and put you in a position of controlling your own destiny. So today we're talking about the challenges and triumphs of building a successful business. Mm-hmm. And for those who are out there and maybe either considering starting a business or being an entrepreneur, or maybe are currently an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. this may be a good conversation for them to hear if they're at the early points, because what we've learned is it's not easy.
Right. And you've been doing this how many years? You've been in this
36. Yeah. 36 years.
Yeah, long
so,
time.
One of the hardest things that happens when you're building a business, unless you have some kind of product or something that just rocket ships off from the start, which is not the norm. Right. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Most businesses fail. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't succeed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them don't succeed because it requires so much work, so much time, so much commitment. And especially if you're somebody who's married and has a family and some of those things, it just makes it that much harder.
Yeah. I was waiting. I was going to say yes.
I thought you were going to say something.
I was going to say about sacrificing the time away from family was one of the biggest things, I think, with us. You know, learning to deal with that and be supportive of that at some point after I realized that it wasn't just you're trying to be away all the time and not want to be home. It was you were trying to build the business and do things that you need to do.
Yeah, you know? So there's a price to pay. Mm-hmm. You can run a business, but you can't have a thriving, successful business unless you eat, sleep, and drink it, number one. You have to live it.
And you did.
And I did. Yeah. I sacrificed a lot along the way, and I missed a lot along the way, but you also have to have an agreement and understanding with your family and your spouse that, look, I have to really pour into this if we're going to make it work. Right. I think some of the failure points that I see with people who are starting, a business or want to be an entrepreneur is they don't allow for the time aspect that it's going to consume. And so it burns the relationships around them. And even with us, we had some relationship challenges because of all the time I was away, and just you lose connection. A lot of people, end up divorced.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot to be.
Yeah, and we were close to that a few times. I mean, we just went through different challenges and ups and downs through the years of that kind of stuff. So it's a hard thing, but you're proof that sticking with it and just putting your all into it. I mean, that's what you did. You literally, I have to say, in the eat, sleep, and breathe it, you would he'd dream about work and be talking in his sleep, and it would be about work. And I was like, my goodness, you just couldn't get away from it. It was just always on your mind, always. So
I will say that was not intentional.
Oh, no.
Obviously, but I was so consumed with it and so driven to build the business that it essentially was on my mind 24/7. I always tell, people, look, if you're not really going to be in it, don't even start.
Yeah.
Don't even start, because there's the rarity of you just starting a business and it just rocket shipping to success, or even being able to take care of yourself and draw money from it is pretty rare.
It could take years, right?
It could take years. And oftentimes people who are entrepreneurs or self-employed go years before they ever can draw much of a salary beyond, $20,000, $30,000 a year. It consumes everything. So it's a hard route. Now, when we went through it, there were some tough times. And I had a conversation with you specifically letting you know, hey, look, it's sink or swim. I've got to do what I have to do if you want to survive here. And you were a homemaker, so there wasn't a choice. It was, all the financial responsibilities fell on me. And that was our agreement.
Cute, yeah.
And I never expected or asked you to go get a job, because I was honoring what we intended to do, and I was fighting to win. Yeah. And so around the recession in 07, 08 was that time when contract after contract just disappeared. And I'm like, hello. And then my dad, who I was partners with, says, I'm out of here.
Exactly.
He's ready to retire, and he was getting older, but he didn't want to go through the stress and pressure of what was coming either. Right. It was a tough time. And we lost so many contracts to where it got to the point where the funny thing is, you lose contracts, you lose business and income, but your overhead doesn't change.
Yeah,
It's
you still have
there.
bills to pay.
You still have buildings.
Yeah.
You still have, insurance. You still have everything you have to pay for everyone, and just to keep the doors open, which was a significant amount every month. But no income coming in anymore.
Right, right.
It's pretty scary.
What made you, I was thinking about this, was there a pivotal point where you're like, okay, like, I got to figure something new out? Like, what made you, because I know you revamped everything at some point, but was it just fear of like losing all the contracts, not having money come in? What did you do at that point? What made you switch it around and say, I'm going to fight for this, instead of saying there's no point anymore type of thing?
Well,
why didn't you give up is what I'm asking too.
I think you have to, it depends on the person. So for me, I have this personal rule. When challenge comes, when something big comes, I'll give myself a few minutes to fuss, whine, and feel sorry for myself. And then, my narrative in my own head is, suck it up, man. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And if people don't have the mindset of, okay, it's time to take action, because action is the only thing that's going to create any kind of change at all. It's not going to change by just sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, moping, crying, whining, anything else. You're going to have to get up, and you're going to have to press in and figure out what are you going to do, make a plan, and start doing that. That's the only way something changes. So for me, that's what I did. I was kind of sick, and it wasn't like a few minutes, it was weeks, because I wasn't really sure how to change this thing. And literally, it's like every phone call I made, say, hey, checking out on the program, how it's going, and if we can, start, replenishing inventory for you, whatever. Either people wouldn't answer the phone anymore, because in 07 it wasn't, email was very prevalent, but nothing like it is today. Yeah. And you did still talk to some people by phone.
On the phone, yes.
Now it's like, there's no phone calls. Yeah. It's rare. Maybe some text or, some emails and stuff, but it's rare you have a phone call unless you're in a relationship, working out some details over a contract or something like that. It's a Zoom or, something of that nature now. There was nothing. Everybody disappeared. And it's like one after the next, to where I was like, okay, it got to a point, how are we going to pay the bills?
Right.
But being that I had no formal education, I didn't know what I could fall back on. It was, what are your choices? And my choices were only it was like a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
It's fight. You have to fight. And I think if most entrepreneurs or people thinking about starting a business today walk into it with that mindset that says, hey, look, there's a price I'm going to have to pay, and there are sacrifices I'm going to have to make, and I'm willing to give it my all.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who have the greatest opportunity to succeed, because good chance it will come to that someday.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what's one of the biggest, well, we kind of talked about, I think, maybe your answer, but what was one of the biggest sacrifices you think you made in that time of rebuilding the business?
Yeah, so it consumed me, and the greatest thing that, as looking back now, what it consumed is my time to, watch the kids grow and be present. Yeah. Although, I was often, I rarely missed dinner and stuff like that. That was a staple, it was important, so I'd be home. But I may have been home, but I wasn't there. Yeah. I was still at work.
Right.
And then after dinner, I'm back into work, whatever else. So it consumes you. And you've got to have some type of ability to either handle that kind of pressure or not.
That's huge, because a lot of people buckle under that kind of pressure. It's was tough. A lot.
Well, that's why so many businesses fail. But, I don't want this to be like a gloom and doom.
Oh, no.
I hope that it's an encouragement to somebody who is either an entrepreneur now, maybe you're a struggling entrepreneur, maybe you're somebody who wants to start a business, or you're just now putting together some thoughts to it. And if you have a spouse or a family, if you're single, fantastic.
Yes, that's
greatest time to do it, because it's all about you, right? But once you get a family and people to take care of, that changes. And your wife and kids are going to have an expectation that you're going to be available and you'll be there.
Right.
And that's where the struggle comes in. And you've got to learn how to handle those and have an agreement with your spouse of, hey, this is what that looks like. Are we on the same page?
Right. And be prepared for, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And we did have that. We had that conversation, like you said earlier, but it was it's like I said, it's totally worth it in the end. All your hard work, has paid off, and you changed so many things and updated everything, and you turned it around for sure. Just as a lot of hard work. And
I always say by the grace of God and some really hard work.
Hard work.
But I never prayed for orders, I always prayed for wisdom.
Yeah.
And I said, if I'm going to ask for something, I don't want to ask for the thing because, I always say, and this is a different conversation, one of the things T.D. Jakes says, which truly impacted me, is God makes trees. He doesn't make furniture.
Right.
So in other words, to summarize, he's given us all the things that we need
Tools.
in this human brain to be able to function, to be creators, to fight, to be able to see things for what they are, to have emotions and process those, all things that help us to be able to win and gives us a different intrinsic nature than what animals have.
Right.
Animals have only animal instinct. That's it. So we're different. We're the only species like that. And, so I always prayed for wisdom, and wisdom to see things differently or not to miss something right in front of me. And then I think that, coupled with hard work, really gives you the key components for the greatest opportunity to be successful.
Yeah.
Now, had I not done that, we wouldn't see the rewards that we have and the freedoms we have today. So that hard work and that beginning time, those are the seeds you're planting.
Yeah.
That's the seeds you're planting as an entrepreneur. You're planting seeds in your business and you're growing, but it's a slow grow. It's not going to happen overnight. So you have to be patient. You have to have an agreement with your spouse that this is going to take work and it's going to consume a lot of me. Are you okay with me giving a lot to this so that in the future we can reap the harvest instead of, suffering a divorce or a broken relationship?
Yeah. Exactly, and that's what we did. It was a known thing, and it it was tough during some times, but it worked out in the end. And I was supportive of the fact that this is what you have to do, and I knew that, and just that part of it alone, I think us having that agreement and knowing this is how it's got to be. It's going to be hard sometimes. It was super hard on you. It took a lot out of you during those few years of really hard stuff, but it was just something we did and got through it, and
I would say that, I know today there's the majority of homes are dual career
income.
parents, 2 incomes, but in our situation, it was not. It was, we wanted you to be able to maintain the home and the family, and I would go off and work for, the financial side of it.
And you always did things outside of the business also. You had had more than one job going.
Yeah, I've always had. I still have more than one job, but it's a little different. But I would say this: it's not necessarily the man or the woman. Sometimes, in today's world, it's either spouse may be the primary income earner, the other one may be a homemaker, whatever else. But I think one of the most crucial components is if you are a stay-at-home homemaker while your spouse is going out trying to grow a business or be an entrepreneur, then you have to be on the same page, but you also have to support them because they are going to be in some tough stuff. So when they're not there all the time, instead of ending up with a little attitude or critical when they come home and the other person is trying to figure out what's going on, oftentimes it's because you haven't spent enough time together in a while. And what we found is the greatest way, once we noticed that,
once we figured it out,
is, hey, we need to spend some one-on-one time together and be intentional. And then we would spend some time together and just hang out, whatever.
It's like reconnecting.
And it would refresh, renew to where you're resetting that clock. But that clock is the timer's still running. So, so all that to say, the person who is in the support role, not the actual entrepreneurial or business owner role, you've got to give the appropriate support, love, care, so that person can do what they're doing. Because in the end, I wasn't doing it for just me.
Right, it was for the family.
What if you have all the money in the world? What good is it if you don't have any loved ones to share it with, or any experiences that you can purchase with the money that you made, like vacations or important things that make memories? By yourself. Exactly. It's worthless.
Not fun to be lonely.
So at the end of the day, hey, look, I'm a huge proponent. I can't tell you how many people that I have coached or mentored towards going out and start a business. They've shared, I'd love to go into business for myself, and here's what I do. Whether it's a tradesperson, there's been electricians, there's been drywallers, there's been all kinds of different people that along the way through my journey that I've got to speak into their lives. And I am always the one advocating, saying, man, If you feel it, go do it. Go do it. The best thing you can do is go do it because it gives you the freedom. In worst case scenario, it doesn't work. You tried it and you're living without regrets. But you don't want to live the next decade or 20 years and come to retirement age wishing you had more. And the only thing you think about is, if I had only done that one thing, if I had only started my own business when I felt the draw or the need to do so, and I let it pass. So get out there,
go for it.
Start that business. Just know up front, it takes sacrifice. It's not easy. It's not for everybody, but you unequivocally can do it if you're willing to put in the work, and you can do it with a family and the support of a family if you and your spouse understand that it takes sacrifice and you're on the same page.